Now for Global Business Updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Vimbai. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers out there. We begin in Asia in the aviation sector. You remember that tragic Singapore Airlines flights from London to Singapore that was caught in some really dangerous turbulence that led to the death of a 75-year-old man or so, and severe spinal skull injuries to a number of people. The plane got caught in turbulence and just dropped rapidly. People who didn't wear their seatbelts at the time got thrown around, hit their heads on the top of the cabins and so on and so forth. So Singapore Airlines has now come out on a Facebook post with compensation. They say that there will be initial compensation is about $10,000 for people who suffered minor injuries, and they're also going to be giving $25,000 to people who suffered severe injuries. But I think what they said in the Facebook post was that it's like this $25,000 is initial, so it looks like there may be more. Well, they didn't give more details. But coming off of what happened, that tragic incident, the plane again, it had to, I think it stopped in Bangkok or so. It didn't crash, but it was pretty severe in terms of what happened. So they've come out with compensation for that. We moved to the UK. There were some jobs numbers that came out. There's an election coming up July 4th, so any bit of economic data that comes out is going to be jumped upon by Labour and the Tories. So essentially, and since we're talking wages, front page of today's This Day newspaper, Nigeria's newspaper record, talking about that deadline for Labour expiring. You'll notice if you look at the numbers in the UK, February through April, unemployment ticked up just slightly to 4.4%. January through March, it was 4.3. These numbers are from the Office of National Statistics that were just released this morning. Average wage growth, again, if you are in a developed economy where you are producing jobs and you've got innovation, wages will go up. You don't even need to start fighting, although there's the junior doctor strike going on in the UK, though we should say that they're asking for 35% increase in their wages. Doctors are leaving the UK, and there's an issue though, of course, in the medical infrastructure in the UK, so I should point that out. But on the average, wages grow, right? So you look at that, your average wage growth, 5.9% year on year. Wages excluding bonuses, 6% growth. I think the markets were expecting 6.1. Private sector, that WX bonus is wages excluding bonuses for the private sector, 5.8% year on year. So the Bank of England is going to be looking at all that data because, again, as wages continue to rise, more money is in the pockets of people. They buy more stuff. Inflation, inflation is pulled up. So the Bank of England, these are the numbers that they're going to be looking at in terms of plus other factors like inflation to determine whether or not it's time for them to cut rates. We go to Apple. Apple finally came out with their worldwide developers conference yesterday. The markets were, waiting to new information. They came out with Apple Intelligence, which is their own artificial intelligence software. Although, as we all know, they've announced a deal now with OpenAI. Sam Altman tweeted it yesterday saying he's happy that OpenAI is working with Apple to introduce ChatGPT to Siri and a number of other things. And also, there was one particular display which I want you all to take a look at because, mathematics rules the world, right? Whether you're talking wages, economics, whatever. The world is ruled by math. So there's an update called Math Notes for the iPad. It's pretty incredible stuff. Take a look.
I'm so excited to show you the new Math Notes experience. I get to it by just tapping the new calculator button right here. And with my Apple Pencil, I'll just start writing out expressions like I would on a piece of paper. As soon as I write an equal sign, Calculator immediately solves it for me. And even shows me the results in handwriting like my own. When I make a change, the results update live. And I can go beyond basic math with all of the same functions from the scientific calculator. I can save my math notes and come back to them later if I'm working on different things. Like here, where I'm working on a budget for my team's upcoming table tennis tournament. Since I'm in Math Notes, I can sum these costs quickly by just drawing a line underneath them. It's so natural. Math Notes are also really powerful when it comes to more complex math. Here, I have a physics problem my teammate and I are working on. We're calculating the maximum height of a table tennis ball when I hit it with different speeds and angles. MathNotes supports variables, so I've declared a few here, and there's an expression below, which uses these variables to help me calculate the height. What's powerful about variables is that if I change one, like the velocity of my shot, it will change the related results too. And if I want to see how this speed impacts the height visually, I can. I'll just put y equals in front of this equation. And now, when I tap the equals sign, I have an option to create a graph. And if I'm curious how the height will be impacted by the angle of my shot, I can hover my pencil over the angle and adjust it to see how it affects my graph in real time. It's an easy way to explore equations in math.
Does anybody remember your further maths classes where you actually had to plot those graphs on the y and x axis manually? I mean, it's really incredible. Well, I should say this though, Apple stock fell, so the markets didn't seem to be too impressed with what they saw yesterday. And by the way, Elon Musk, I don't know whether it's because he was jealous that Apple and OpenAI were trending all throughout yesterday, so he wanted to insert himself into the conversation. But there's a tweet from Elon Musk where he said, if Apple integrates OpenAI into their OS, that's the operating system. In fact, there's some big updates coming for Apple OS, iOS 18. He says that he will ban Apple phones from being used at all his firms. Now look, you know that Elon Musk and Sam Altman, he was one of the originators on OpenAI. They famously fell out, so there's some beef between the two of them. And so, you know, he was tweeting repeatedly about the safety issues, which perhaps he has a point, because remember, they're still trying to train these large language AI models, and so there's an issue of privacy with respect to the things you ask OpenAI or ChatGPT or Siri or whatever, whether to collect that data. Apple says that's not the case, that's not going to happen. Let's get to Nigeria. As you know, the AfriExim annual meetings is beginning tomorrow in the Bahamas. We have a team already that's going to be on ground bringing updates to all our viewers from June the 12th up until June the 15th. And of course, we'll be talking about, you know, prosperity on the African continent, relationships in Africa, Caribbean, and so on and so forth. But AfriExim has announced a $40 million intra-African investment facility for Fidelity Bank Nigeria PLC. Now, this facility is to aid Fidelity Bank's acquisition and recapitalization of Union Bank UK. So it's been divided into two tranches. So you've got $20 million that is to allow for the 100% acquisition of, through the shares, of course, of Union Bank UK. And then the other $20 million is to support recapitalization by injecting more capital into Union Bank UK to support the acquisition by Fidelity Bank Nigeria PLC. So with that, Fidelity Bank is now taking that extra step as a Pan-African bank to provide, you know, services, offshore services, not just for banks, but also services for Nigerians in the diaspora, and it is part of their widening footprint. I really shouldn't be touching on this other thing, but there's a silly rumor running around about the CBN revoking licenses, and they mentioned some banks. Again, the CBN has come out and said that they are not revoking any further licenses. So for anyone who's seen that, it's just pretty much ignore it. Finally, I heard Dr. Abati talking about the lawmakers putting forward that single 6-year term, which of course is in Mexico. Remember, we talked about Mexico's election. So Mexico has a single 6-year term, which the new female president is going to be serving. And I heard him talking about the Goodluck Jonathan administration and how the Jonathan administration put that forward. Well, I want to remind everybody else about something else the Jonathan administration tried to put forward. Wait, let's throw back to 2012, where Goodluck Jonathan was telling Nigerians that we need to do something about birth control and we need to cap the number of children that we are having. Of course, the same opposition the former President Jonathan got with the 6-year term is the same opposition he got. But I want folks to think about something. 3 things. If President Jonathan had been allowed to, 1, remove fuel subsidies back in 2012, 2, get a single 6-year term, 3, cap putting birth control and cap the number of children that we have in Nigeria, what do you think the country would be today? Say, food for thought. That's our update for today.
Okay. I mean, that's a good question, but the question is, scenarios will differ, and that's just it. Probably if we had fixed fuel subsidy as at that good position, probably then we might have been, well on our way to having our refineries that are able to get an ecosystem right as regards petroleum production and all of that. Birth control, probably nothing or much will have not changed because Nigeria has a cultural proclivity to have a lot of children. And really, the birth is not really the problem. The problem is how can we harness these young people to work and bring about a productive economy? It's supposed to be a gift in the end. It's supposed to be a privilege. This same thing we are saying we should cap is what Europe is looking for now because Europe is suffering low birth rate. So it's supposed to be a gift. But let me quickly talk about Sam Altman and OpenAI. Pure and simple, OpenAI is the future. Are there going to be challenges as regards security violations? Yes, we have a lot of them. Take, for instance, authentication issues as regards the sources of even the information OpenAI or ChatGPT gets in the first place. Many controversies. In fact, some, creators are saying that the truth has to be said that we now have to partner with OpenAI to be able to get authentication as regards the creation. So for those that fear that AI will take their jobs, no, because AI will still feed into what is being created initially. What AI just does, it processes what has been created initially. So there will still be a job for a lot of creators out there. They use backends and things like that and all of that. But it's a good one for Apple as regards the Math app. It will make productivity increase, functionality increase. And it's, there are two new arms race in the world as we speak today. The AI arms race, the chip and semiconductor arms race. And that's going to be the future. But the question is, where is Nigeria playing in all of this? We're just adapters. And probably the electric car arms race. We're just adapters. When is Nigeria going to create its own first electric car that the battery is made in Nigeria? Not just bring parts from over the world. I think those are the conversations we shall have and look forward to development. Because the money we need to run the economy in the future. I read a very interesting book that changed my life. I think everybody should read the book. I keep talking about it. Today and Tomorrow, Henry Ford, where he was saying we must be pioneers of the future. I think these are the areas that will bring about the new oil boom for us, not hitherto fossil fuel. We should key into technology and sciences.
Right. Now, Rotus, trust you to bring up population control. On that issue, when we look at the fundamentals of it, especially as we were discussing the minimum wage and the proposal was a figure that would feed a family of 6, and everybody kept saying, who has a family of 6? And that's our reality. So I actually tend to agree with you on that it might be time for us to, just look at, I know several people are already doing it. They've taken personal decisions to say, listen, for quality of life, let's just reduce the size of our families. But, at the end of the day, there are cultural norms that determine that the more the merrier. Very quickly on to Singapore Airlines. Of course, this has become a bigger discussion about Boeing. Now, as much as Singapore Airlines is paying the compensation to those who are on that flight, Boeing is nowhere near, in the safe zone as far as conversations around safety regulations. Boeing is still having a very difficult time. Just over the weekend, an Air Canada aircraft burst into flames, another Boeing aircraft. You speak to, I believe there was an exclusive interview with one of the engineers at one of the Boeing workshops in South Carolina, and he was saying that everything in there is just stripped down 787 jets. Nobody wants to fly them from wherever they break down to the workshop because they're a safety hazard. So there's really a bigger investigation that needs to go into Boeing, and why the workers at Boeing are also complaining about being stifled with regards to coming to the public and exposing the rot that's happening with regards to corners that are being cut. A very important conversation that needs to be had.
Okay, the aircraft involved in this Singapore airline matter is SQ321 on a London to Singapore flight, and it was a Boeing 777ER. So I get the point that Vimbaya has made about, Boeing, but the other issue is about safety, particularly the use of seat belts. Many of the persons who were, injured did not use their seat belts at the time, the aircraft ran into that turbulence. It was a 73-year-old British man, going on a vacation with his wife, who had a heart attack and died. But again, another issue here, it's about what the airline has done. Yeah, you said they are offering $25,000 for people with severe injuries, $10,000 for persons with minor injuries. what Singapore Airlines has also done is to give a full fare refund. What they have also done is to make $1,000 available, to cover immediate costs, and to also offer all the families involved who may want to go to Bangkok to see their people in hospital, if they make a request, to give them free, passage to go to Bangkok. This again is about, international aviation standards, and I hope that, aviation people here in Nigeria can also learn from this, where passengers, along our various routes, whether domestic, particularly, are treated as if they do not matter. So there are lessons to be learned from this, unfortunate incident. Now, this week, I was hoping that you would talk about the fact that the Bank of Japan on Friday is going to give us inflation figures. China will also give inflation figures, I think, on Wednesday, tomorrow. And then, of course, ahead of all that, we're looking towards what, the Federal Reserve will do. Inflation is a big issue now. But with the Eurozone, with the ECB reducing, their own interest rates, the expectation is that maybe the central banks across the world are going to adjust, even if, we're told that the Federal Reserve may not go into any cut until maybe September. Finally, gold. The World Gold Council has been saying a lot about the yellow metal this week. First, the production mining has gone down. The productivity with gold mining has plateaued, and spot gold is about $2,294. This is the World Gold Council saying that, over the weekend. But yesterday also, they're saying that there could be a shift in the market away from London and New York, with Singapore going to be the major hub now for trade in the yellow metal, because most of the countries that are, buying up gold reserves, China is the leading one, followed by Japan, followed also by South Korea, and then followed by Singapore. But there's a lot of talk, about the yellow metal, and this again is in response to geopolitical tensions. As for birth control, well, I don't want to go into that argument. Apart from saying birth control, some other people in that field would rather use the word population management. And the whole argument is that even if your population grows, if you strike a balance in terms of the resources at your disposal and productivity within the economy, maybe, you don't have to worry too much about, culture and religion and persons who are opposed to the word control. When you use the word control in Nigeria, people get really nervous. But maybe management is what we should be talking about. Thank you very much.